Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In the last one, we started this very long script that's going to allow us to equip, show, and switch between our weapons. Like I said, this class is it's a lot of event graph stuff. This is one of the heavier ones. Once we're done with this part, we're gonna work on creating our weapons, and there'll be more exciting stuff going on, but we gotta get all this back-end stuff done first so that our game actually functions. Okay, so where we left off, we have our weapon pickup, our spawn weapon function, and then our equip weapon event. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start building off of this equip weapon event. The first thing that we wanna do is we wanna pull out a branch. Oh, also, a little tidbit in between videos. I took all of our variables of the weapon slots and I created a category. So all you gotta do to create a category is have a variable selected and type in a category, and then it'll create one, and then you can drag them around, put them in correct order. So now you don't have to have this super long list of variables everywhere. It makes it easier on your life. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new variable. We're gonna call is switching weapon, and this is gonna be a Boolean. So we wanna check, before we can equip a weapon, we wanna make sure that we are not already switching weapons. Okay, if we are not already switching a weapon, then we want to make another check, and we'll say is reloading. This is a Boolean, yes. Okay. We're going to see if we are reloading, and our reloading script doesn't exist just yet, but it will eventually. So this part of it is essentially here so that if we are reloading a weapon and we try to switch, that reload will actually cancel. It won't continue through while the other weapon mesh and data appears. So if we are reloading, we want to turn reloading off. If we aren't reloading, then we just want to say, well, we are switching a weapon. And we want to connect these two like that. So if we are reloading, now we're not reloading, and then we can start switching the weapon. If we aren't reloading, then it'll just say that we are switching the weapon. What we want to do here is we want to create another function to run. This function is going to exist to show our weapon meshes and hide the one that we currently have equipped. So we will accurately name this hide and show weapon mesh. We can go ahead and I'm gonna close that down. We can go ahead and drag this out and put it right there, even though there's no script in it. The first thing that we want to do when it comes to hide and show weapon mesh is, well, we want to pass in that data from before. So we have it automatically set it to weapon base object, and we'll just name this weapon. All right, and just like before, I want to promote this to a local variable because this is going to be a hairy function. Local current weapon. Now, if you remember, I talked about is valid before, and that's where this is going to come back. So if we get our weapon slots, let's get weapon slot 1. That's the first one that we want to ask. Weapon slot 1. If weapon slot 1 is valid, we want to set, oh, this might not even show up unless I have, oh, it does. Set actor hidden in game. The actor that we want to set hidden in game is weapon slot 1, and we want to make it hidden. So true means invisible. That means visible. The reason that this is valid thing exists, okay, when it comes to this script is that if you run hide and show weapon mesh, when weapon slot 1 doesn't exist, it will get confused. So is valid is kind of like common sense for computers. So it'll recognize like, okay, you're saying to make weapon slot 1 invisible, but I don't see anything in weapon slot 1. there's no data in this variable currently. So I'm just gonna carry on my way. All right, so now we want to ask that again for weapon slot 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This same exact thing. So we can copy and paste. Is not valid. So if it isn't valid, then it's gonna ask about weapon slot 2. If it is valid, it's gonna set that actor hidden in game, and then it's just gonna continue on the script like that. So this is what it should look like, and then we wanna put weapon slot 2 in like that. So this is valid thing mainly exists because like we're gonna want to make weapon slot 1 visible, right? But it's gonna continue on and it's gonna look at weapon slot 2. The first weapon that we pick up, when we pick up our first weapon, there won't be anything in slots 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So is valid is going to be able to determine that this isn't even valid. So it's just a way to prevent errors. That was like a very long way of explaining that, I guess. So let's copy and paste these two and do the same exact things until we have 6 of them. You can hit little reroute nodes to make it not ugly. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just need 2 more for 5 and 6. Like I said, this isn't super complicated. It's just long because you have to check for, you know, I'm being nice. I'm giving you guys 6 weapons over here. Okay, so we got weapon slot 1, weapon slot 2, weapon slot 3, weapon slot 4, 5, 6. Oh, cool. Okay, what this is doing, let's comment box around this whole thing, and we'll say hides currently equipped weapon mesh. So if you don't have this here, you'll equip a new weapon and it'll function properly. Let's say that you have the assault rifle, right? And then you switch to the pistol. The pistol will work properly, but you will see the pistol mesh or the assault rifle still mesh, and it'll be overlapping the assault rifle. So this is just hiding all of these meshes so that they don't overlap. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that our new one actually shows up. So this is where this gets even more ridiculous. So out of set actor hidden in game, we want to pull out a branch. And we want to do this whether it's valid or not. So both of those are going to connect like that. I might want this a little bit further down because it's going to be big. And then what I want to do is out of this branch, I want to take our local current weapon. So remember, local current weapon is this right here, which will get dragged into here, which also equals this, which also equals this, which also equals this, which also equals this, which is this. That's how this can get confusing. Okay, so if our current weapon equals weapon slot 1, and if you remember, in spawn weapon, we are setting weapon slot 1 to current weapon. If we switch to weapon slot 2, that becomes the current weapon. So if our current weapon equals weapon slot 1, you might be able to guess what we want it to do. We want to take weapon slot 1, and we want to set actor hidden in game, and we want to leave that unchecked. We want that to show up. We want weapon slot 1, whatever that weapon is, to become unhidden, to show up, in other words. So what we're going to do is now we need to copy and paste this 5 more times. I know, people. That's crazy. So there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Comes 5 and 6. And all that you want to do here is just slot in weapon slot 2. Weapon slot 2. So if it equals weapon slot, so if it doesn't equal weapon slot 1, it's going to run down. It's going to say, well, does it equal weapon slot 2? If it does, it's going to show it. If it doesn't, it's going to be like, okay, well, does it equal weapon slot 3? So on and so forth. 3, 4. Coding is monotonous when it gets to be like this and you have so many weapons to check. All right, so now we have that. Highlight that whole thing. Comment. shows currently equipped weapon mesh. Boom. Look at that. Okay. Rest assured, this function and this function are the longest ones we'll ever create, okay? You can close out, never look back. Let's plug weapon into weapon right here, just to make sure that data is getting passed through properly. That's looking like a pretty straight line, Unreal. Whew, my gosh. And what we want to do is we want to take that loadout and we want to set it to has weapon. We now have a weapon. Then we're going to pull out a delay node and we're going to delay for point, oh gosh, 0.33 seconds. I'm gonna add a comment here for you and say allows time for weapon switch animation. If this doesn't exist, this little delay, then the weapon animation, this code will run so fast that you won't actually see the weapon switching animation that we're eventually going to set up. 0.33 was a good time that I thought, where it looked pretty good. Weapons is switching weapon. We're not switching the weapon. And then let's make another Boolean right away. Call this can shoot. Can we shoot our gun? We can. Okay, it'll be default false when we start creating other events and input actions to shoot. We will be turning this on and off because we don't want to be able to shoot our gun when we're like reloading and doing other things. So we'll say re-enables shooting after, or you know what? Can't shoot while switching weapons. You don't want to be able to shoot a gun when you're switching between them. It would be weird. Okay, so that is all that we want to do there. Cool. Okay, so now, like I said before, our weapon pickups are going to run this weapon pickup event. But what if we already have all of our weapons and we just want to switch between them? I'm glad you asked. That's when we would just run equip weapon. But we want to bind those to our keys 1 through 6. So now we're going to do that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new event graph for this. And I'm going to call this action mappings. And then what I want to do here is I want to go 1, 2, 3, give me a 4, a 5, and you guessed it, 2,100, just kidding, it's 6. All right. Put these in semi-okay positions. Spacing them out a lot. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there. For 1, let's pull out an if, a branch, as Unreal likes to call it. And we're going to say, is weapon slot filled? If our weapon slot is filled, then we want to do another check just to be extra safe. We want to make sure that our current weapon is equal to weapon slot 1. Equal. Oh, wait. Sorry, is not equal. I was like, wait, that didn't sound quite right out of my mouth. Okay. Okay. This thing right here disables, like, so if you have weapon slot 1 checked, or you have weapon slot 1 equipped, you don't want to, if you hit the 1 key again and this isn't here, you'll just keep running the switching animation. You'll switch to the same weapon over and over again. This is disabling the ability to switch to the weapon that you already have. So if the current weapon isn't already 1, meaning that if it equals 2, 3, 4, and you're trying to switch to 1, then we want to call our event equip weapon. And the weapon that we want to spawn, in this case, is weapon slot 1. And then we're going to set that as the current weapon. The reason that we're setting this as the current weapon is because this spawn weapon function will only run the first time that you interact with that weapon. So I have the little floating weapon. I'm spawning that actor into the world for the first time. I'm setting all of the locations of it into my hand and all that stuff. I'm setting that as the current weapon. But now let's say I have all 6 weapons. Okay, they're already all spawned and I just want to switch between them. So now we just need to run the equip weapon, which shows and hides the mesh and also does the little animation. That's all that we want to do. So that's why we want to, nothing's actually setting that as the current weapon. And since we created this input here, we can set it to be anything. Specifically, we always want the 1 key to be weapon slot 1. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this whole entire thing and do the same thing for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are a little bit close to each other. So I'm gonna give you a second to do all of this for weapon slots 2 through 6. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, now with all that done, you should have first 1, 1, 2, 2, second 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. Just make sure all these are the correct numbers here. And then let's comment box around the whole thing. And we'll say key bindings to equip weapons after they've been initially picked up. Dun, 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 dun. So, like I've been saying, all of this is back-end stuff. It might not be totally making sense at this point, but when we actually add the weapon meshes, when we actually do the animations to put them in our hands, all of this will all of a sudden work beautifully, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me through this. In the next video, we are going to start by creating our weapon pickups so that we will have something to actually run this event. And then when we can run that event, we can then start creating our animations to actually hold the weapons and readjust the arms because it's a little broken in this with the assets that we have. And then we can put the guns in our hands. And then once we have all of that set up, it'll be beautiful. And then we can add some cool functionality to the weapons, actually get them to work. So hope you guys are still enjoying our way through this. You're learning some stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.